If you're leading at a high level and your days feel more crowded than intentional, I'm opening something new for you. The Women's Executive Leadership Lab is launching now in beta. It's a small, practical community for experienced women who want to develop the systems that support strategic action, not constant crisis, who want to learn how to delegate with confidence, knowing the work will be done to your standard and timeline, and connect with other amazing women who are shaping industries and improving lives. Head to womenleadwell.net/well to learn more.
Welcome to Joyfully Unstoppable, the podcast for women who are ready to succeed without the stress. Whether you're leading a team, a classroom, a boardroom, or your own big, beautiful life, I am so glad you found us. I'm your host, Becky Hamm, leadership coach, speaker, and founder of Women Lead Well. Each week, we'll explore what it means to lead joyfully, sustainably, and authentically, even in a world that tells you to hustle harder and prove your worth. You carry a lot. Let's help it feel lighter. Okay, friends. Today, we are going to talk about a challenge that I hear all the time with my clients. Let me describe a common scenario and let me know, show of hands, send me a DM if this is you. You are accountable for outcomes in a situation where there might be multiple stakeholders involved. It is unclear whether you have the authority to do what needs to be done to meet the outcome for which you are responsible. Oh, and did I mention that this is a glass ball? You cannot mess up. This has to happen. Expectations are really, really high. Yeah. Sound familiar? So many women face this leadership challenge, and it could be men too, I'm not sure, but I feel like this is a particular challenge for women. We are given responsibility, often because we're pretty freaking successful. We've got a strong track record of getting stuff done, and so we are given responsibility to do something that is really important to the organization without being given the actual authority to do it. So, today on the podcast, we're going to talk about that dynamic. What is at place or what is at stake? And we're going to talk about how do you approach it? What do you do in those situations where you've got the responsibility, but it's not clear that you've got the authority? And I want to say a couple of things as we get started. If this is you, if you've got a scenario where you're responsible for an outcome, but you don't actually have the authority to achieve the outcome, I want to say, one, all is not lost. It does not feel good. Of course, it does not feel good. Yes, it's going to be a little harder to get the outcome because you have to do more negotiation than simple management. But that's okay. Strong, capable woman, you can do it. And we'll talk about it today. So this really is about leveling up as a leader in order to excel in this situation. And if you can excel in this situation, well, that's amazing. That bodes really well for you and your potential future success. But I also want to say, when it comes to this situation, it could be the case, I'll speak for myself, like we get to where we are successful because of our ability to get stuff done and make things happen. And a lot of that energy, as we talked about a couple episodes ago, is the energy of control. I can make this happen. I can get this done. And so when we're in a situation where we don't have the authority, where we have to negotiate and ask and be diplomatic in the way in which we pursue the ultimate outcome, and sometimes maybe have to pursue it in a way that we don't want because that's what we have to do in order to get the people to come along that need to come along, that can be frustrating. And so I just want to clarify from the outset that what we're talking about today is not how do you wrestle authority, how do you gain control of the situation. because maybe you can. And we'll talk about some ways to try to clarify the authority and get the control. But in the situations where you can't, and there are many of those, what we really are talking about today is how do you find the clarity you need in order to be effective in that situation where the authority is not going to be forthcoming. It's about navigating the complexity of that situation with confidence and effectiveness, because it's not just that you're confident in the situation, but that you actually get the outcome that you need to get out of the situation. That is what we're talking about today. And I say that because you don't need a super strong authority. You don't need clear authority, and you don't need a ton of authority to be effective. You do need clarity. You need good, strong discernment without ego, without insecurity, without addiction to control. And you need really good, strong, consistent, intentional communication. So let's get into it. And we're going to start with how do we find ourselves in these situations to begin with? Well, pardon my hair tie. This is a very different, for those of you watching me on YouTube, a very different setup than normal. I am out of town for work for a few days, and I thought, while it's relatively quiet and I have very few distractions, I'm just going to record podcast episodes. And woke up early to record this one. So you've got me in a sweatshirt and you've got the city behind me, or you just have sky behind me, because I couldn't get an angle in this hotel room that looked any better than this. And I don't think this looks great. So here we are today. And hold on, I'm also going to drink a sip of my little lemon water. Not sponsored, but man, I love me Spindrift in the morning. She good. Okay. Why do we find ourselves, or how is it that we find ourselves in these situations where our authority and our responsibility get disconnected? Well, some of it's obvious, right? Oftentimes, if we're in a matrixed organization where you've got different functional sections or departments that work together, supposed to be collaboratively, toward a common goal, it doesn't always come together that way. But regardless, what a matrixed organization does is it can improve complex action, but that can often come at the expense of organizational clarity, right? And it's a feature, not a flaw. So when we're in a matrixed organization, it can often be unclear who has the authority to take. It can often be unclear who is responsible for certain actions, but it can absolutely be unclear who has the authority to take certain actions and to do certain work. And you see this in cross-functional teams, right? That you put together people with different sets of expertise because that improves performance and outcomes. But then, do I have the authority to task or demand or hold accountable poor performance for an individual who is coming from a section different from my own, who's just working on the project or working on the in the division? It just is a challenge of that organizational type. Again, tons of advantages for cross-functional teams, tons of advantages to matrix organizations. This is just a known challenge. Organizations with shared governance, so important. I was just at a conference of higher education leaders over the weekend, and shared governance, critical to their structure, that faculty, staff, leadership, external bodies like their boards, that they all have a role in defining the policies and decisions that make up the university. Lovely. But if you are the one responsible on delivering outcomes, either for a particular policy or shaping the policy, well, you need input and approval from a bunch of different people, all who have both different perspectives and different interests at stake. And who are you to tell them what to do? And so It is common to find ourselves in this situation where we are responsible for something without actual authority. And I'm highlighting these different instances because it doesn't just come because of some sort of dysfunction that your boss was trying to crowd you out or set you up to fail. I'm not saying that's not the case. That is a very unique and individualized situation. What I am saying right now is that it is common to be in this situation because of many of the structural elements of organizations today. They are features, not flaws. They just create friction. So let's talk about the risk that comes with that situation, though. I'm saying it's fairly common, and it's not, again, necessarily set up to hurt you, but there are some risks involved, particularly in a situation where, so those are the three that I laid out: matrix organization, cross-functional, shared governance. There is also, of course, the situation where where something is developing and you are put in to take it on, right? It's an emergent issue, an emergent project, an emergent thing, right? The company is doing something, the organization is doing something new for the first time, and you get put in because you're highly capable and effective and get stuff done and probably have a great reputation at the organization. So they know that you will have an easier time getting along with people without the clear authority. And that list of responsibilities, your to-dos, your deliverables, just builds quicker than the list of authorities, right? Or the documentation of the authorities. You maybe have some kind of a verbal communication, but something that is documented and actually firm. So what are the risks associated with that?
If you've been listening to Joyfully Unstoppable and thinking, this is exactly what I've been wrestling with, coaching is where we take it further. In private one-on-one sessions, we apply these ideas directly to your leadership, your decisions, and your goals. You bring the real challenge. I bring the structure, the strategy, and the accountability. If you're ready to lead with more clarity, confidence, and joy, book a discovery call now, and let's strengthen the way you show up and lead.
Well, one, probably many of us in this situation, we kick into overfunctioning, right? That track record we have of getting it done, taking care of it. So maybe because you don't have clear tasking authority, potentially, or maybe you do have the authority, but people are ignoring you because they don't buy the authority, right? They don't validate the authority. Well, then you step up because you're the one, it's your responsibility. You're the one who's got to deliver on the outcome. So you take everything on, you fill the gaps, you absorb the ambiguity as yours to carry, as opposed to the organizations or your bosses or the other members of the team, right? This is the dynamic in group projects. There's always that one person who steps up and does all the work. That is one common way that we respond to that ambiguity of authority. What does that do? Well, it burns you out, it leaves you tired. And as we've talked before about the importance of rest and focus on decision-making, it erodes your decision-making, unfortunately. Risk number 2 is maybe you go the opposite direction and you're not I take it all on, I'm going to get it all done. But you say, well, I'm afraid to do anything until the authority question is cleared up. And so you delay decisions. You wait to get permission, right? You're not showing initiative because you don't know if you can. You second guess everything. You second guess what you're doing, how you're doing it. That hesitation, that stalls your momentum. It dilutes your leadership. It casts doubt in the minds of the very people who you need to have confidence in you in this moment, right? And then third, what unfortunately is fairly common is either that other people assume you have more authority than you do, and this happens all the time, right? Oh my goodness, well, you're so-and-so. Of course you can make that happen when you actually have no authority to make the thing happen. Or on the flip side of that, people assume you have less authority than you do. Maybe they're not on board with whatever the initiative is or the work, the deliverable that you are trying to coordinate to produce. And so they're not doing what they need to be doing, even if you've got tasking authority, even if you've got the authority to hold them accountable for poor performance on the particular subject. And so people skew one of two ways. They assume you can do a whole lot more than you can, or they assume you can do a whole lot less. Well, that just breeds confusion. It breeds conflict. It erodes trust, your trust in them if they assume you've got less authority than you do, and potentially their trust in you if they assume you've got more authority than you do and then you're not delivering, right? And so I'm going to circle back to something I said a few minutes ago, that your goal here is not to grab authority. You're not looking for control. I mean, trust, if you're me, you want the control. I get it. But that's not the goal, is not the control. Goal is clarity, clear expectations, clear, transparent, consistent communication. And so now what I want us to do is look at a very quick, the 3-step framework for navigating in this situation of unclear authority. Step 1 is to get absolutely crystal clear on the outcome you're responsible for. And you do that for you as a person, and you do that with your boss or any of the individuals that you are delivering to, right? Might be your boss, but it might be a different group, a committee, a board. And get really clear on the outcome you're delivering with all of your stakeholders, anyone who might need to participate, show up, contribute. And you want to get clear on, 1, what specifically am I accountable to deliver? And think of this in terms of shared governance. You want all of those pieces, your boss, the folks you're delivering to or delivering for. If it's a client, you want clarity with the client. You want clarity with your boss or your leadership. And you want clarity with all the people who are going to be contributing to that outcome. Because you don't want to be 6 months down the road and then someone who is delivering for you, right? And a part of that cross-functional team, and have them say, oh, well, I didn't know, or, oh, no, that's not how we would do it. You get that clear. What are you accountable to deliver? What are you, the individual, accountable to deliver? And then what is the deliverable that is being delivered? Second, you want to get crystal clear on who evaluates the outcome. Who tells you if you made the mark? Is it the client? And is it only the client? Is it your boss? And is it only your boss? Who gets to say whether you hit the mark or not? And then finally, you want to get real clear on, again, with all of these people, what does success look like? So there is, what is the deliverable? What's the outcome? And then what is success? Because there could be that they want you to do a certain thing, but they need it within a particular framework, right? Maybe that is timeline. Maybe that is who is involved. Maybe that is the process. Maybe there's an ancillary goal related to cross-functional health in addition to the actual deliverable that you're working on. And so I would say separate your outcomes from your tasks. Make sure to have those conversations and ask those questions of all the parties that will be a part of your work. And get clear on it. Write it down, document in emails. You know all of this, but make sure you don't have to have enthusiasm from everyone, but some form of acknowledgement that you can then return to if you need down the road to say, well, but this is what we agreed to. This is what we talked about. Has anything changed? Because sometimes things change. If they change, then okay, then you go back around and you do it again, right? That's step 1. Hyperclarity on what, and if there's a how, on the how. And then who gets to say, who gets to count it for score, who's evaluating it. Step number 2, you want to map the decision landscape, right? You want to take a little time and figure out for yourself, what decisions fall clearly within my role? What are mine? What shots am I calling in this process? 2, what decisions require consultation? Right? Maybe I am calling the shots, but it might be smart of me to get input from other people. So, where am I calling the shots? What decisions are mine to make? What decisions do I need to consult on? Either because it's a good idea or because it's not my call to make, right? It's somebody else's call. And so I've got to work with them to get a decision. And then what decisions require explicit approval? That last conversation is one to have with your boss, but you want to be very clear that everyone that you're working with knows that answer to, because they think you might need approval for things that you don't actually need approval for, right? So get super clear on the answers to those 3 questions. And again, document. I mean, I would literally write the answers out somewhere. So you've got it. So at any point in the process, you can reference back. If you are the kind of person who hesitates, you might be reluctant to make a decision that is yours to make. So if you've got it like documented somewhere that, no, this is mine to do. And particularly if that documentation is diplomatically shared, so everyone can see it and touch back to it and maybe discuss it if they've got an issue with it early on, all of that helps facilitate the actual coordination and collaboration to actually get to the outcome. Because again, at the end of the day, you're not worried about the authority, you're worried about getting the outcome. And then finally, step number 3 is you want to initiate explicit authority conversations. I talked about you want to communicate transparently, consistently, intentionally. This can be hard for some women, so let's talk through. It might not be hard for all women, but it can be hard for some. You can say things like, I am accountable for outcome. In order to deliver that outcome effectively, I need clarity on what authority accompanies that responsibility, right? I am responsible for X. Boss, I need to know from you, what authority do I have in order to accomplish X? Boss will tell you, you write it down, you send it back in an email to say, I just want to verify, this is what I heard. Is this right? You get a yes or a clarification or whatever, right? You can have the conversation. Where would you like me to act independently? Where would you prefer that I check in with you before taking action? You can have that conversation with your boss or the up and outs with the team that's working with you. This is where I intend to just take action. What are the points that you see where we should be coming together for a discussion, where we should make sure that we're aligned before I move forward with a decision, right? You're bringing them into the decision-making process, but you're framing that in a way that establishes you as the person in charge. And by doing that, you're not necessarily getting the authority that you want, but you are clarifying expectations with all of the stakeholders all the way around who are touching the project or the initiative or whatever the thing is, the responsibility that you've got. And you're just operating by the principle of no surprises. You have the responsibility and you own that responsibility, and you show that you own it by having those conversations, by getting clear what is yours, what requires consultation, and what requires approval. And so let's circle back. We're going to wrap this up. This episode maybe went a little bit long, but it's such a big, juicy thing, and it really can be confusing for people. Authority is a part of leadership, but it's only part of leadership. Influence is a whole other huge part. And if you were tapped to be responsible for some big, juicy glass ball, mixed metaphor, you've got influence. And so today's episode was just about how do you work authority where you've got it and influence where you've got it to deliver on the outcome. Because again, the authority helps us feel good. It gives us that sense of control. It's like a security blanket. And it's very helpful. It makes the process a lot easier. But your goal is the outcome. And so even without the authority, you can get that outcome. And by following those 3 steps we talked about today, it might take a little bit longer. That's okay. You're still going to get the outcome, and it's going to be a better outcome than if you didn't follow the 3 steps. So let's wrap this up. I invite you to ask yourself a couple of questions as we wrap up this episode. First, what are those places where you've got the responsibility without the authority? Because probably, if you're listening to this podcast, you got at least one. 2, who are all those stakeholders that you could sit down and have a conversation with to increase alignment and gain that clarity, not the control, but the clarity? And then 3, what would change if you led from that place of I'm going to get the clarity that I need to achieve the outcome and release the need for control? You can navigate these complex systems. Sweet friend, like you are a highly effective leader, or you wouldn't be investing the time to listen to a leadership podcast. Clarity is a leadership skill among many others. Influence is a leadership skill among many others. So is alignment, so is collaboration. And so this is an investment of your time and energy that will pay off in performance, will pay off in outcomes. And the more you do it, the easier it is to do. And the more you do it, it doesn't only help you with this one discrete thing, but it also socializes the other individuals in your organization who you're having these conversations with, that these are normal and important conversations to have. And so you're improving the possibility for better performance across the board. Yay, win, win. So my friends, that is all for today. I hope you have a great day. And if this episode spoke to you, I would love for you to share it with a friend. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you could leave a review, I would really appreciate it. It really does help a little podcast like mine to get in the ears of other women who could benefit from it. Remember, joyful, sustainable, and authentic leadership is possible, and you deserve to enjoy every minute of it. Until next time, I'm Becky Hamm, and this is Joyfully Unstoppable.